Hello, everyone. Welcome to I don't know, this day's episode of TNT Live. I guess I was going to say like this week, whatever. I'm already messed up the intro, and that's okay because the whole episode's already messed up because Daniel Bordman is late, but he will be here soon. He's just coming back from a meeting. So in the meantime, I won't go over the topics that we wanted to both discuss. So in the meantime, I have what I wanted to talk about was Andrew Coyne. This recent stupid Twitter post he has, where every once in a while he'll go after the liberals because the liberals obviously suck and they keep doing stupid things. Hey, Ninja Scroll Studios. Obviously the liberals keep doing bad things, and every once in a while Andrew Coyne will actually call it out. But every time the conservatives actually call out a liberal agenda, basically Andrew Coyne sets his hair on fire because he's mad that the conservatives, are on to the fact that the liberals have a very globalistic type agenda. Anyways, I'll make it a little bit bigger on screen. But this is one of those things that just convinces me, or I think I was convinced a while ago, but this is one of those things that really puts a fine point on the fact that Andrew Coyne is not a conservative. So here we have Pure Polyev reacting to this article from Adam Panzraz. I think I'm saying that right. Anti-road Guilbeault drives down the slippery slope to climate tyranny, and this is all obviously in reaction to Stephen Guilbeault saying that we should be building less roads and not investing in anything. He tried to walk those comments back the next day by saying, I'm not saying we shouldn't invest anything into roads, just new major road projects. So it's like, okay, so he's not saying he's just going to let potholes form in major highways and have the highways get shut down. Obviously, nobody thought that that's what he meant. Everyone actually assumed Guilbeault meant what he clarified, that what he wants to do is reduce the number of new roads or new lanes in order to make it so that if more cars go on the roads, there's nothing there to compensate for it. But so Pure Polyev said Trudeau's radical environment minister's decision to end road building is a part of a plan to deindustrialize and make us reliant on foreign dictatorships to sell us the things our government bans us from making at home. Sign the Stop Trudeau No More Roads plan. And that's 100% correct. Obviously, it's going to hurt manufacturing. It's going to hurt crazy amounts of industries, manufacturing especially, in order to just have less actual roads, because you can't really build stuff and then ship it through this country if you don't have roads to you don't have built up roads. Just Stephen Guilbeault's plan is obviously part of the greater degrowth movement on the left, a crazy movement thinking that, well, the West is terrible and bad and we're hurting the climate, so that we actually should be focusing on reducing our economic growth, because economic growth means emissions, and emissions means sin in the minds of hyper far left environmentalists. But now we had Andrew Coyne respond to this, and he said, attention rubes, used conspiracies on sale now, all makes all models, just send money. And it's like, what conspiracy theory, Andrew? How is this a conspiracy to look at things that Stephen Guilbeault says and react to them on their merits? But but Andrew Coyne is a dedicated leftist at this point, so he doesn't like conservative people saying conservative things. The perfect conservative in his mind is Aaron O'Toole, a man who will never actually challenge the fundamental beliefs of the left, and he'll just balance liberal budgets if he was ever to win government. Oh, goodness. Super chat for Wyatt for the cost of one bite of a lobster and for the progressive algorithm. And what the heck is climate tyranny? Climate tyranny is the idea of probably that all policies and regulations are formed around a far left environmentalist view that restricts your ability to operate in the economy as you wish. Thank you for that $6.99 super chat, Patch Stress. You're one of the best, most dedicated viewers of the channel. So for anyone else who wasn't watching at the very beginning, Daniel Bordman is going to be here. He's driving back from a meeting, and he just got a little bit held up because it went on for a little bit too long. And so now I'm just killing time talking about some other things I want to talk about that Daniel might not want to talk about. QMJ gives a $2.79 super chat. Good job, guys. Thank you. Thank you guys for all watching the channel. It's been a lot of fun. I actually really enjoy these live streams, just to be able to talk about random political issues that aren't really worth making an entire video about. Yeah, everyone, thank you. There's 51 people watching on the YouTube channel. There's people watching other places as well. So if you want, like, it helps us promote the streams if you like the video because it recommends them to more people. Basically, everything that you do, like commenting and sharing, goes into the YouTube algorithm, and it basically shows more people the stream. Patch dress with $2.79. Daniel's getting held up by climate tyranny. Well, actually, that's not even wrong because the roads in Toronto are so underdeveloped because of the left-wing government there that the road systems in Toronto suck. So if he's later than I even think, that's purely up to Olivia Chow and the previous mayors, except for Rob Ford. What's popping, Wyatt? Not much. I'm going to see if I can find some of these other posts that I know Daniel's not going to want to talk about, not because it's like bad or anything, but it's just like a little bit too down the rabbit hole on a singular issue. I think I found one right here. It is absurd just how much people who follow the Liberal Party are disconnected from the realities of the world. So I have this post right here that I made under Housing Minister Sean Fraser's post. He says, "We've reached housing deals with 6 small and rural communities in Alberta with solutions like lower development fees, faster permitting, and more public land availability for housing. Sylvan Lake, Bow Island, West Loch, Smoky Lake, and Duchess are doing more to get homes built." I don't even think that the housing affordability like acceleration fund does any of that stuff, which is why housing starts have gone down over time. And so that's why I commented, then why are housing starts going down year over year for the past 4 years? And the funny thing is, none of the money that they give to these municipalities actually requires them in order to actually get the money. So they're basically just dumping money on municipalities, just promising that they'll build more, when the last 8 years of the Liberals' housing plan has proven that they don't build anything. But this lady then commented back to me and said, because signing an agreement doesn't result in instant houses, JFC. I don't want to say that because blasphemous. But then I said, the Liberals have been in power for 9 years and have been signing these agreements for multiple years now, and housing starts have decreased. The amount of new housing projects being started have fallen. Developers do not want to build under current conditions. And she said, wrong. They just started signing agreements with the Housing Acceleration Fund last fall. And I don't want to keep reading this thread, but it's so obnoxious to me how many people think that the history of an issue starts right when the Liberals pretend to start taking it seriously. The Liberals since 2015 have had a housing plan. You couldn't operate without a housing plan. Every government has policies for every area of life. And the Liberals' plan so far have basically just been throwing money at housing development projects, trying to get them built faster. At the same time, the money does nothing because there's no actual incentives in order to make housing starts speed up. Also, Sean Fraser actually probably is correct that places like West Loch and Duchess and Banff, Kananaskis and Sylvan Lake and all these areas, they probably are making it easier to build. But notice that that's something that they did themselves, that they've already been doing for multiple years, which is why areas like that have always been very cheap to build in. And it isn't something that just happened just because the Liberals started giving them money. The Liberals just signed an agreement where they basically agreed to promote the Liberals and say, hey, thank you for the money, and try and shift them over some voters. And then they can just dump that money onto basically paying some extra, paperwork fees, inspection fees, and whatnot that developers would usually have to pay for. All this at the end of the day, has Toronto, has Mississauga, has Hamilton, have they agreed to lower the regulations and all the other kind of things that need to be done in order to build homes? They haven't. All these jurisdictions that are signing on with the Liberals, none of them have actually signed up to making it easier to build. It's just these Alberta towns the Liberals are pretending are making it easier to build because of the Housing Acceleration Fund, when it's just been something in Alberta and smaller towns in general that they've been pushing towards making it easier to build. This money is not actually going to do anything because the money is just going into the same system. Whatever the system was like before, the money is going to be used to build houses in that system. But in places like Mississauga and Toronto, it's not going to speed up new housing builds because it's just throwing good money into a bad system. QMJ says Liberals will be known as the lost decade. This last 9 years has just been more and more government over time, more and more regulations and taxes. Like, it's such a sad kind of country to live in the sense that really what the only thing you can look forward to, and I'm not oriented this way, so I don't actually care, but the entire system is oriented to hoping that the government smiles down on your particular industry and then starts handing out subsidies. If you try and build a small business from the ground up right now, good luck. There's just so many taxes, so many regulatory barriers that unless you show up into that industry with millions of dollars already on you, it's going to be impossible to break through. Anything the liberals do is nothing. Everything liberals do is do nothing. Photo op production. They premise money they never spent, then re-promise that same money for more photos. And yeah, and someone still has to explain to me, how does just giving money to municipalities actually speed up like the building of houses? Are they compensating developers for building stuff? Like, I guess maybe they're paying the regulatory costs developers usually have to pay for. But if anything, why wouldn't the liberals just put pressure on municipalities in order to reduce the amount of regulations and like zoning issues, zoning laws, and different inspection requirements that they have to go through? They're not actually doing any of that. They're basically just giving written agreements with these municipalities that they'll build more. And whatever they say, basically the liberals pretend like that was part of the agreement. Whenever you read the Housing Acceleration Fund's website, it's so vague. There's no requirements on municipalities to reduce like zoning bylaws in order to get the money. They don't have to do anything to make it easier to build. They don't have to reduce property taxes. Nothing. They don't have to do anything. And they can. That's like, did Sean Fraser, the housing minister, come out and condemn Jody Gondek in Calgary for increasing property taxes by 7.8%? Did you go after Olivia Chow for putting up by 10%? Have they gone after municipal politicians for wasting money? No, they haven't. They've just thrown money at them, which is probably just going to inflate the price of housing in these areas. I know Reddit isn't the best place to judge real life, but I just read a Canadian military member is thinking of leaving Canada because he can't afford housing. Our military can't afford homes. And I think that's not that our military can't afford homes. It's just that nobody can afford homes right now. I think I saw it because I just did I did someone else's show today that's probably coming out in the next few days or so. Daniel does a lot of segments with them, but it's called Can-Am News. And what he sent me a chart before I went on stream just so I could see some of the so I could like have like a greater context of some of the topics we were talking about. And I actually hadn't seen the exact numbers on how much houses have gone up in price in Canada. So in Calgary, I think housing prices went from like $442,000 for the average single family home, and now it's like $669,000. So it increased by like 40% over just 10 years from 2013 to 2023. That is absolutely ridiculous. And that's why nobody can afford homes, is because there's just way too much immigration. There's way too much taxes, and zoning laws in municipalities is terrible overall. Andrew Coyne starts on CBC's political talk show. His right turn signal is stuck on, but he keeps turning left. Yeah, like supposedly Andrew Coyne's still a conservative. And I've said this in the past, all Andrew Coyne stands for conserving is institutions that the liberals create. If the liberals create the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, basically Andrew Coyne will say that you're not a real conservative unless you defend that, or else you're not conserving the institutions of government, and conservatives live for nothing more than conserving institutions. Like, that's pathetic. No, conservatives actually have to stand for something other than just the status quo, or conservatives will quickly only be the enforcers of previous liberal status quo. Coyne is conservative news to me. Well, Coyne basically just sometimes disagrees with the liberals, and the liberals are in power a lot, so he kind of, casts himself as a critic of the liberal establishment, or whatever the establishment is. But we have Dan here, so we can stop hearing me ramble about random topics to kill time.
I have done it. I have returned. I have conquered the world, and now
you threw the ring in the mountain, right?
I see the most recent comment I see is about Andrew Coyne, so I'm assuming this is very Wyatt themed. stream.
Well, yeah, I was just making fun of Andrew Coyne while you were away because you probably didn't want to
Good.
go on for 20 minutes about Andrew. But I was
Yeah,
just saying that, like,
I'm more of a 5 to 7 minutes an Andrew Coyne type of guy. So I'll assume the job has been done.
pretty much, I was just talking about the stupid tweet he made. I sent it to you a little bit ago. Just like he's saying that it's conspiracy theory that Polyev is saying that Stephen Guilbeault is a crazy person who endorses degrowth ideology, which is just true. It's a
Yeah, he's
conspiracy
openly
theory.
about that.
Yeah, and like he's like implying it's like a conspiracy theory to say that Stephen Guilbeault wants to stop building roads when Stephen Guilbeault, even in his partial retraction of his statement, basically just said, "Well, I just want to start building new major roads." Like, okay, like yeah, nobody was implying he was against filling potholes. The whole point was that he wasn't going to increase infrastructure for roads, like road infrastructure,
Yeah, which
so
is
that
so crazy because usually the big thing of the left is tax us infinitely and we'll infrastructure it. Well,
yeah,
don't worry. There'll be such high taxes, but there will be an infrastructure bill. Will any roads get built? No, but at least we'll claim to build roads. That's one of the big promises of the liberals is, listen, we're doing all of this for imaginary infrastructure. We love infrastructure, but I'm actually glad Bibliot has taken the anti-infrastructure position because that actually is what the liberals' position is.
well,
So
that's why he's really honest. That's why he stood up in Parliament and actually referred to himself as a proud socialist, which you don't really believe happened until you literally watch the clip yourself and you realize, oh, he actually wants to lose this next election badly. Yeah. Patch says Daniel overcame climate tyranny in traffic because he was wondering if climate tyranny was what was causing you
it
to.
was climate change. Had there been, listen, there would have been, had you all paid more taxes, I would have been here earlier. So the lesson is the tax rate should be over 100%, and that way I could get places a few minutes earlier because that's how it works. Because you declare something a problem, and then you increase taxes, and then you write a bill to address the Daniel getting stuck in traffic problem, and then it goes away.
Patch is actually being less ironic than you think. We're talking about the fact that Toronto has terrible road infrastructure because it's all focused on like public transportation and whatnot, so that you
Oh,
being
don't
held
even
up
get
is
me started on the
partially
street
the
part.
fault of
Yes.
the roads themselves.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Do we what topic are we getting into?
We're going to talk about the dumbest scandal ever. We're going to not the dumbest in terms of like, oh, it's a fake scandal. Who cares? The dumbest in terms of the most avoidable scandal ever, and that is Lobster-Gate. For
Lobster-Gate?
some reason, Minister of Agriculture Lawrence Macaulay went, and I'm just using this post because I want to talk about something else later. Maybe I'll just pull up the normal photo of it first. But Lawrence Macaulay, the Agricultural Minister of Canada, decided that it was a great idea to let everyone know that he loves lobster. He likes lobster a lot. And what's so crazy about this, and I think people kind of miss this part, he's in Malaysia for some sort of trade negotiations. He's talking to people in the agricultural industry. Whatever. I don't even, didn't Malaysia just have like a coup in it or something?
Yeah, not the most stable place in the world.
Yeah,
Malaysia is
like,
also a government where like,
but Trudeau and
yeah,
the Liberals never want to punish countries for doing terrible things, so we ended up attending anyways. And like you can even tell just to study this photo a little bit in a nice location. He's not exactly
yeah.
in like a cheap restaurant, and that is a little bit more than a prestigious amount of lobster. Like that's like pretty high quality stuff. And in the text of the post itself, he even says, "Are promoting our world class products like the lobster I enjoyed for lunch in Kuala Lumpur." So it's literally imported lobster from Canada. He literally traveled across the world to just eat Canadian lobster at like a 5-star restaurant. I looked up some places, like it was like this burger and lobster restaurant in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. Wasn't even exactly that expensive a place for one dish of lobster there and like a burger. So like half the meal is like a cheap meat protein item. It's 130 USD. I don't think that he paid $50 or less for that lobster. And
Oh
again,
yeah,
it's
and
not the
like,
lobster
listen,
itself we're
there's
mad at.
probably places to get cheap lobster in Malaysia if you go off the beaten path, but the place that the minister is staying. Listen, to me, this is $16 orange juice territory. Was the conservative spending $16 on one orange juice at a thing like good? No, it's not penny pinching conscious. It's not smart, but is it like a scandal? Like, no. Like, I honestly, I think your take is right. Is the agriculture minister allowed to fly to different countries to promote Canadian products and then expense a lunch or two? Yeah, like I'm fine with it. Like it is what it is. That's politics. So be it. right? I care more about the trillions and billions they're wasting on stupid things, and like the fact that hundreds of millions of dollars disappeared in the Arrive scam app, and also like what Arrive Scam app was doing, even in the best case scenario, was also I mean, that's one thing we should also say. The Freedom Convoy was right about Arrive Cam. Like, if you remember, the demands from the Freedom Convoy was get rid of the vaccine mandates and end the Arrive Can app. I think they were pretty right about the Arrive Can app. So, yeah, you're right. All this guy had to do was eat the lobster, not post a picture of it and put it on social media.
Yeah, and even then, it's more of like the disconnect. Even if here's the thing, if he ate the lobster and then I found out about it in some sort of like press release or whatever, that someone like dug into the expense reports and he had eaten lobster, I'm like, who cares? It's just the mental disconnect from the fact that there are so many people who can't afford to buy basic groceries. Don't show off the fact that you are billing something that you really didn't need to order while you were in a country that literally the lobster came from Canada and you ordered it. It wasn't like you're at a bilateral meeting and I ordered Canadian lobster because we're promoting it and we're with some Malaysian ministers or whatever. No.
Yeah,
he was having a private lunch by himself and his team.
If he had said, like, if you were in Malaysia and you had just secured some deal for Canadian lobster fishermen in Malaysia, and you're like, I'm going to eat some Canadian lobster to make a point that, hey, we are selling these products in Asia, and be like, promote it like, hey, just celebrating with my Malaysian friends here, get the Malaysian kind of thing. Like, we're both having Canadian lobster, and expect more Canadian products to be on the streets of Malaysia and Indonesia and South Asia because of what I've done. Great. Then that's worth it. Then, like, if that's an investment.
If any of us complained about that, we would look like morons because they're like, they just secured a deal. It's a great moment to have, but this is like just sitting in a random restaurant.
This is
at
like
1 p.m.
Canadian. Yeah, this is like, there's Canadian lobster on the menu of this 5-star hotel that are being put up. I'm gonna order the
Carl, take a photo of me.
Brag about it. Like,
yeah, it's like so because and the thing is, it leans into the impression a lot of Canadians have of liberal politicians is that they are so focused on their own comforts before anybody else. Now, I mean, that's why they whine about Poilievre proposing to cut funding in the government, because they're like, that's our money. And like, that's the problem, is that they don't seem to understand that's not their money. That like when they fearmonger about, well, they're cutting like the benefits for you. No, you guys are worried about your budgets. That's why when you take a picture of something like this, it doesn't even cross your mind. Like, have you ever sat down and paid $130 for lunch? Like, it might be less than that maybe, but I don't think it's a cheap meal.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, people, it's a very expensive lunch. Like, listen, if you're administering one of an expensive lunch, again, don't brag about it publicly, you ding dongs. Like, that's one of the things people hate politicians for, and rightly so. Like, you listen, if Canada, if the economy was crushing it and just like we were just absolutely crushing it, and then you had secured a deal, like, celebrate with some lobster and let's show some opulence as the country. But no. All right, yeah. Gabibliot couldn't resist being a champagne socialist, dining in luxury while witnessing a good old hammer and sickle revolution.
Well, that was Lawrence Macaulay, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I think Gabiblio would saw what Lawrence Macaulay did and was like, I like this. This is good. I think climate change is bad, but flying to Malaysia to eat lobster is good if you have the right opinion.
I actually need
6 points.
I actually need my glasses, because if I don't, you notice my forehead like way faster. That's why I can't have a short haircut, because I need to cover half of it, or I look like a. You
need to get like the Miami CSI Miami glasses, so you can like do one-liners and then take them off.
Yeah, no, that's why I actually almost need bigger glasses, because the bigger glasses portion me out. If I had like the thin glasses, like I'm a '90s. I don't know, douchebag. It would like make my head look way bigger.
Anyway, you should try a leather jacket and aviators.
Yeah, we should make a Matrix themed show, and it would really piss off all the PPC people who won't stop using the Matrix as some sort of an analogy. Anyways, I just wanted to cover this. It was just me responding to someone, but I just wanted to, like, this is like the liberal response to this. She says, there it is. CPCHQ MP Rick Perkins expends $462 for conservative MPs and their guests to dine on fresh lobster at Stornoway, acting like this is a counter. So look at this. It was $462.50 for a total guest attendance of 200 people. That was the only thing he expensed that day for food or drinks, was $462 for 200 people. So if you guys can do the math on that, that is spending $2.31 per person. I think people will get over that.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing. Like, it's stupid stuff. Yeah, this is for difference between $150 for one person and 400. But like, again, this is this, I won't call this a scandal. I won't even use gay, but this is something that deserves mention, deserves to be made fun of, and then but like not really discussed. Like, it's done, and like no one needs to get to the bottom of this. We just need to make fun of this ding dong for being an idiot, and then kind of move on to more important things.
Yeah. I now want to move on to. Well, I don't even think we need to bring anything up on screen for this one. I just want, like, did you see the Bruce Arthur article on Pierre Polyev and Alex? What is his name? Alexei Navalny.
Yeah.
Like, there's this weird, dumb, fake controversy going on that Polyev said nothing when Alexander Navalny was murdered. Like, he was one of the first people to issue a statement, and they're like mad
right away. He said
they're mad he didn't like write a novel about Navalny. Like, it's so like so, that.
Yeah, it's so disingenuous because like Polyev, if you bring up the statement if you want to, like I think most people saw it, but I think it was 3 lines. It was 1, Navalny has died in prison. 2, he's in prison for opposing Putin's authoritarian regime, and 3, conservatives hold Vladimir Putin responsible for his death. So it's an open implication that he was murdered by Putin. That you could say in strong words. And then Bruce Arthur writes an article saying this didn't happen. Polyev has not said anything about it. Like, it's these people.
The idea is like, oh, he didn't say anything. He's been mute on the issue. Like, what was he supposed to write a haiku about it? Like, it's the whole point is it's a statement from an opposition leader in Canada. What do you think Canada's going to do about Putin murdering a dissident? Like, the thing is that there's only so much that you can kind of say, and he was just making it. It was actually kind of funny. Polyev, in a certain sense, made it as clear as humanly possible that he condemns it, that it was because Navalny was an enemy of the regime, and that he condemns Putin. He almost made it as simplistic as possible so nobody could lie about it. And they couldn't even handle that. They couldn't handle not lying about the most simplistic statement ever. It wasn't like it went on for 2 paragraphs and they pulled something out of it like, well, that sounds like he's lying Putin off or something like that. Like, no, there's zero implication that he takes Putin's side in any way.
Also, all these people, I guarantee, are hypocrites, or most of them are, because there's been Canadians killed by authoritarian regimes under the Trudeau administration. Saeed Khafizamani in Iran, the entire PS-752 flight shot down. Like, again, I had a friend murdered by the IRGC here in Toronto. None of these people have said anything. Bruce Arthur hasn't called that terrorism. None of them have gone after like people murdering actual Canadian citizens on our soil from actual authoritarian regimes. They only do it when it's popular for them. And like, yeah, Ukraine became popular on the left because, you know, in 2016, we all pretended that Donald Trump was in bed with the Russians, even though there was no proof of that. So this became a cause celeb among the left. But Bruce Arthur didn't give a shit about Ukraine in 2014 when they were invaded for the first time.
Why do people think that it's left-wing parties that have always had a strangely cozy relationship with Russia? It's the Green Party of Canada and Green Party USA who frequently gets invited to Russian-funded events in order to basically stump for progressivism in their countries and somehow undermine the social fabric. That's literally why Russia likes the Green parties. It's because the Democrats and the liberals would never be stupid enough to meet with them. And so when you meet with the Green Party, you can basically try and insert some stuff into the progressive left. You can insert certain ideas. So why do you think there are so many progressive leftists who hate the Western countries and always blame like America and Canada and the UK first on any issue related to foreign policy, just before dictatorships and rogue regimes? Ugh. It's time for Andrew Coyne to be lambasted with the scarlet letter L. He had, like, when was the last time you've ever thought of him as a conservative? Because you've obviously paid attention to the news longer than I have.
Like, technically, he does have the old school conservative position, like on Ukraine. Like, he is somewhat, you could say, conservative sometimes on foreign policy issues. Like some foreign policy issues, like he's definitely not a radical leftist, where you could say he's sort of like 2003
I don't consider him left, but I consider him like a liberal, like kind of like a small L liberal party type supporter, in the sense that he's not, and I don't like to say people are shills, but he's like quite almost pretty close to just being an establishment shill. He likes views that are like fashionable in Toronto media circles. He very much seems to contort himself to be acceptable at cocktail parties.
Yeah. I think there's that thing. Like, the most conservative thing about him is probably his like monarchist view in Canada. Like, I think you're pretty right on him. He's like an institutionalist, but like a pretty, silly one. Is that as soon as
liberals create the Ministry of DEI, and he defends it because if you get rid of it, that's not conservative to not conserve the institution the liberals created.
Yeah, exactly. But deep in that, I would say his most conservative thing is he does believe in preserving the institution of the monarchy, and like he's not going to start tearing down statues of Queen Elizabeth and all that. So I think if we were to really psychoanalyze him, his most conservative view is he's against. I would say probably tearing down of historical monuments, and that's probably his most conservative view.
Yeah. He's a conservative in the sense that he desperately wants an autograph from Wilfrid Laurier. But this is the sort of thing I see so often on social media these days. This is kind of like the peak TrueAnon, is the idea like Pierre Poilievre, promise everything, deliver nothing, blame someone else. Poilievre, I don't know if anyone's heard. He is actually not currently the Prime Minister of Canada, but I see so many posts these days where people are saying, here's something I actually saw the other day. So there was this guy complaining about, I forget who was being quoted, or I think it was actually a Chantal Hubert quote or whatever, basically saying that Poilievre is, or whatever. It might have not even been her. It might have been Charest. Anyways, regardless, it doesn't matter.
Chantal Hubert.
But yeah, over some graphic, this guy posted, what are conservatives going to say when Pierre Poilievre gets into government and he doesn't deliver on any of his promises and he leaves Canada worse off? What will they say then? I don't know. What will you say tomorrow when Justin Trudeau starts turns into a pig and starts flying around and bombing things with his milk udders? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say to any of this. You're just saying stuff. But that's so much of what I see these days. It's just like, well, what will you do when Pierre Poilievre runs into your home and kills your mother? It's like, that's bad, I guess, but I don't know what world we're living in where we can just accuse Poilievre of it's like pre-crime. It's like pre-crime, but you get to just make it up.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, what do you? Because to these people, it's like, conservative ideology always fails. They live in fantasy land. There's people, there's I see there's Canadian socialist influencers. I don't want to send them to you because then we'll have to watch their but I see people who still do the socialism has never been tried meme. People will be actually defending Venezuela. The reason it's corrupt is because of capitalism. And capitalism is corruption. It's not socialism, because socialism would mean this utopia where the workers own everything. And it's like,
I saw someone today claim that Justin Trudeau was hawkish on foreign policy because military spending as a percentage of GDP has risen since 2015. And the thing is that you're like, okay, but what is the military spending being spent on? The thing is that we have terrible equipment, because I just saw a post from Bill Blair and we're like, we've sent Ukraine these $95 million of drones or whatever so they can monitor the battlefield. Yeah, that's the problem. We don't actually have weapons. We don't have any tanks. We don't have any air jets in any great supply to defend ourselves. We don't have really anything. We just have a lot of military money in the Canadian Armed Forces. But it's HR, it's administration, it's we literally gave another 100.
It's a tampon brigade. It's specialized tampon distributors.
There's more bureaucrats. There's more people picking up phones and answering calls about nothing because someone else.
There's a bunch of people investigating sexual abuse and misogyny in the military and trying to find racism. So
that was basically that last scandal with that what was that, that Navy officer or whatever? They were dragging a guy through the mud basically for being one of the few remaining generals who was focused on actual military, on actually building up the military. Yeah, well, there you go.
That made me laugh, so I put it on there. Wyatt did not do that. Anyone coming after? Okay, my thing is Yeah, you want to do all that, like, but we can't get there. Like, the most simple thing we should be doing is like, we have a competent, functional population, and we have tons of minerals. We need to be making like artillery shells. Like, that's what Ukraine needs, and that's what our allies need. Like, and then we make money here. So it's like a lot of them, like Canadian people are kind of upset with like America gives way more to Ukraine than we do. And I mean, the percentage of American spending on Ukraine is like minimal. But also the money that America spends on Ukraine is often spent in America on American manufacturing plants to make the weapons and ammunition that the Ukrainians need. So it is like being spent in America. If Canada had plants that could manufacture high quality artillery rounds, which is what Ukraine actually needs and what other countries need, we could have these plants going. And then when other countries have aid spending packages, it could be spent on Canadian plants and jobs here. This would then be a money maker for us and could then fund.
That was that problem with the 95 millions in drones. Is there a drone factory that I missed in Canada? I don't think that we actually make military grade drones in this country. I guarantee, especially because all that's chip reliant.
So the countries that do have the factories that make the drones are getting Canadian taxpayer dollars,
or at least the chips that are the actual useful thing in them.
Yeah, it's like, this is like, guys, it's like, and then people will scream like, you know, if you the military industrial complex, it's like, yeah, I understand the dangers of the military industrial complex. I understand what Eisenhower said, but there's also a means of like national security and national interest. Like, don't you want our country to be self-sufficient? Like, because if you have more military equipment and you're able to manufacture and you're an important strategic military ally, your allies will protect you, and it deters like the communists and the CCP from messing with you. Right. And like, that gives you more power. And then like, yes, you can make money off of like selling artillery rounds to people. Like, is Sweden, oh, we are neutral. Like, no, the reason why Sweden didn't get invaded during World War II is because they made weapons and artillery rounds that they had power and influence to deter invasion through industry. It's not rocket science.
Maybe, hey, did you see that Giorgia Meloni, the Italian prime minister, is coming to Canada?
I'm so excited. Oh, Trudeau's gonna cry. Trudeau's gonna cry, and
he's gonna like call her a bigot again or something.
Yeah, he's gonna look big. Like, yeah. Nothing to say about the Malaysian prime minister, who's like literally like, Jews drink blood, and we should kill them all, and that's all fine. Kill the gays, kill the Jews, blacks, ew. Like, this guy will say all that, but as long as he says, diversity is really important and Islamophobia is bad because he's an Islamist himself. Oh, that's fine, right? But the second George Maloney says, enough with the migrants and the trans, right? All of a sudden, we have a problem. So that should be exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. That's a good transition, because then we can talk about Pierre Poilievre and his actual hard stance that he's now taken on puberty blockers for minors, and then now actually actively offensively posting in basically alliance with Danielle Smith to promote the idea that Canadians actually don't want basically gender theory and stuff taught in the classroom. So maybe I'll go find that post. But yeah, you made a video on that, and I'm not sure if you have any comments to add, but I'm at least happy that, because it's one of those things that people keep acting like, I've heard people in the background saying he shouldn't do that. It's controversial. We could lose voters. It's like, no, we're not. That's just not how politics works. I thought we learned from the Aronoff School era.
Conservative Party works, but it's not how reality works. Right? Yeah, the Conservative Party will convince you that we got to take. I mean, we've said on the show for years now, the Conservative Party can't wipe their ass without taking a poll on whether they should first. Like, it's just how now. Where Poilievre is a lot better.
This is based on a poll, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. But this is where Poilievre is a lot better than the majority of previous leaders. He acts quicker than most conservatives do. It's not as fast as most people would like. But when he commits to something, he understands how to commit to something, right? He is not he understands that if you can commit at a minimalist way, you get minimum results, but if you go maximum, you get best results. So this is actually him being offensive, him coming out and saying, actually, no. More than half of Canadians agree with us that this is all crazy, which is something he should be saying. right? Frame the
Well, and
narrative.
that's
So
something
everyone
that, and
agrees.
that's a good way of pushing it, because because the media will always do the thing where you're taking a controversial stance. Well, do you think Canadians are going to go along with you on that stance? That's very blah blah blah, and it's always just the idea that you're doing something weird. That is controversial. Why would you say this? Again, it's mean girl tactics. That why would you take that position? That
Exactly.
position so last year and garbage like that. Whereas him basically taking the position, standing up with Danielle Smith and saying, also, everyone agrees with me, so shut up, guys, is the
And
right
you
way of
can
doing
move polling, like by shifting the narrative, you can move the polling too. This is where, like, again, here's a good Aaron Taylor like puts it out. Like, there's a lot of truth in here. Like, Polyev is the first conservative leader since Harper to be his own man. Sheeran O'Toole failed by trying to be Harper 2.0. That's not 100% what happened, but that is, I think, a big part of what happened there. And you know, they were too looking around again, trying to afraid to frame the narrative, following polls, following an outline. You know, trying to run for office in 2006 is the joke I'd always make about them. But you have Polyev, which understands his ability to influence a situation by entering it. Like, you're the leader of the opposition. If you jump into a topic, you can move the needle on the topic if you're competent at doing so. Like
And that's what always frustrates me. And it's not even conservative politicians, even though obviously I want the Liberals and the NDP to fail. That's what so many.
I'm going to also highlight this is also
Yeah.
Sheeran O'Toole failed because they weren't Harper 2.0. That's true. They tried to be Harper 2.0 and emulate them, but they weren't, and that was also why they failed. Those two
Harper, this sounds so weird. Like, this sounds like such a weird comment from me, but Harper's a lot like Donald Trump in like the reverse way, where Stephen Harper is the only Stephen Harper. He is the only guy who can be that very softly spoken guy who just wants to talk about taxes and foreign policy and be like the most interesting guy in the room. Where Andrew Scheer was too kind of, I think he's a good guy, but a little bit doofy in the way he presents himself. So he can't be that kind of serious policy guy the way Stephen Harper is. He should have. Andrew Scheer, and here's like, maybe we should even go over the two of them, how they should run. I think Poilievre's running the way he should, so we don't really need to comment on it. But I think with Andrew Scheer, he should have run as a just nice guy dad. He would have won as the nice guy dad. Know what I mean? That Justin Trudeau's divisive, he's corrupt. Now we just need a nice dad to take over and be able to like calm everything down in the country. That would have worked. But he tried to be like a policy wonk and the hard-hitting guy who's going to turn to Justin Trudeau with like his dimply smile and say, you're not the one. You're not, like, you're a liar. You're dishonest.
I just want to put to bed the rumors. Christopher Phelan did not drive me. After that one night we spent together, she has not called me back. It's been awkward since. So if anyone wants to send her a message online and maybe reconnect the two of us, Christy and I, Christy, I miss you. Come back to me.
Yeah. But like, what would you, if you were advising Andrew Scheer, what would you have had him do to win that election? Because I think anyone can win an election if they play it right.
So his thing is, like, I remember, again, like, people are asking, like, what, here's the question, like, in retrospect, how do you think Bernier would have fared versus Scheer there? I was a Bernier guy in 2017. I thought Bernier would be better to do because, he was more libertarian. This is when Bernier was good and just like, economic, free trade in between Canada. And Scheer came in, milk mafia, blah, 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 blah. But originally what you saw in Scheer, the guy had some pizzazz. Like, he could, carry a thing. He could slam Trudeau. But yeah, he just instantly became...
He had to do it in his own way, and he gave over the reins.
He was reading the polls. Like, he was so wrapped around the polls, and then it's like, at one point he sounded the exact same as, it wasn't not Liz Truss, Theresa May in the UK. He sounded exactly like Theresa May on every issue because they're both conservatives and they're both using the same they're using the same polls and the same polling firm and the same data to come up with the same things. Like, he just sounded stock, conservative guy. He lost all his personality, was drained out of him. So yeah, it was funny. The commercials he was putting out were like, my name's Andrew Scheer and my mom is my best friend. And it's like,
my favorite thing is the commercial where he's walking through the park and that mother and her daughter or son, I forget who, walked past him. And while he's talking, he's just like in Canada, blah, blah, blah. And he has like the little kind of George W. Bush or whatever kind of like thumb point. And as he's sitting there, as like the mother and daughter or whatever walk past him, he's like, "Hey guys," it was like it's just like under his breath. Talking normally, like Justin Trudeau has been putting our country behind. Hey guys, and I wanted to bring us into a new direction. Like it was like the creepiest thing ever. It's like, guys, who's on set? Who's like observing this shoot and saying, "Yeah, we're not using that take. Can we cut? Just have them walk by. Just he doesn't need to go like stop them, shake their hands, like rub the kid's hair. Just let them go." It's so weird.
Yeah, it was so contrived and standard and stock and so party, and it had the handlers, the higher ups of the CPC written all over it, and it didn't go well with people. Like you're right, you should have just been like, "I'm a dad, and Justin Trudeau is a loser who hates whatever this communist."
I just looked up the slogan from 2019. Did you even remember it was "Time for you to get ahead"?
Oh yeah, time for you to get ahead. Yeah, and
it's okay. I don't even remember. It's too long.
It's okay, but it's unmemorable. It should have been, this prissy communist is wasting all our money.
Slogan, I have to say, is from 2021 with Aaron O'Toole. So we'll move on to Aaron O'Toole. I think he should have leaned into more so just being the good guy, freewheeling, fun dad, but he ended up just being bland. What was your thing? He should be more.
Well, my thing on Aaron O'Toole. Wow.
No. For Scheer to kind of put it up in a nutshell. I think fun dad is how he should have run.
Yeah, Scheer should have been like, fun dad, leadership, quirky little like, came from nothing. Like, listen, Justin Trudeau is corrupt and communist. And listen, I thought like Bernier was the only one who could possibly have beaten Trudeau in that 2017 because it was like,
maybe that's a good thing to go back to because Aaron Taylor wanted to know if Bernier could have beat Trudeau. Do you think so?
I think he had the best chance because he had because it was in that new milieu where he could have done the libertarian thing and really undercut Trudeau's main thing, which is he still had strong support of like everyone to the right of me is a Nazi. Whereas you could have argued from the Maxime Bernier perspective that Bernier was more liberal than Trudeau because he had that libertarian bent to him that I think would have sold better to the population and had a chance of winning. I don't really think a conservative had a shot in 2017 because Trudeau was 2019. Yeah, he was still fresh. It's hard to be an incumbent the first time. Like that's when Trudeau was at his strongest was 2019. Like you could say,
Bernier would have had a hard time winning because the thing is that every time he would then criticize Trudeau on a scandal, they could just point to a Bernier self-generated scandal. Like again, biker girlfriend type stuff. Yeah. And then I think and I'm not trying to be rude, frankly, the accent is his biggest struggle, is he seems like a Montreal Ponce. Now he just seems like
Bernier, Montreal guy. Listen, that was going to really hurt him. Like he had the bit of the narrative, but yeah, Bernier needs to, if he's going to be serious about being Prime Minister of Canada, or even if he's serious about just running a third party and like, listen, if Bernier's thing is going to go around the country and make speeches, can you at least learn how to make a speech in English, buddy? Like, come on.
Someone actually needs to like, and the thing is, I've heard you can take courses and whatnot to help you reduce the noticeability of your accent. You can learn how to perfect certain sounds. Because right now there's just certain things he says that make him just immediately. It doesn't even feel French. It feels like foreign. I mean, just the way he'll say certain things doesn't even sound Quebec French. It sounds foreign because it's like literally dropping entire syllables of words he says.
Yeah, like it was kind of ironic. Like Maxime Bernier's best moment, in sort of on camera is his "my words are my weapon" thing, and he still goes around and breathes that. It's like. Which like is a good line. Like you're getting pulled over. Do you have a weapon on you? And you're like, no, sir. My words are my weapon.
My words are my only weapon.
That's objectively not true because his words are not his weapon because they're not very good. So like, yes.
Also, that was such like I know he was actually getting arrested, but from people I've talked to in the background, they've said like, yeah, he knew he was basically just showing up there to get arrested and leave. That's why as soon as he got released, he just canceled an event he was supposed to go to in Winnipeg when he was supposed to be defying the rules. Because they were just really there for it was so contrived when he was like getting arrested. He's like, my words are my weapons. He might as well just turn to the camera, just stared at it and said it. And then the cop shook his head and said, I can't believe I'm doing this, Bernier. You're the coolest guy ever. I wish I could vote for you.
It was so contrived. It was, but like, listen, if you're gonna
and the funny thing, it was a real event. Right. It was a real event that he made contrived because the line was too bad. It was like when Patricia Collins, who's running in Durham, who you interviewed back in 21. So it's not like we've been rude to these people in the past. Patricia Collins did that really weird Apple video with Greg Wycliffe trying to like recreate the Apple moment from Polyev. It actually makes my skin crawl because of how cringy it is.
Oh yeah, it's like, why are you going after the opposition? Like, this is, again, the PPC has to stop branding themselves as the opposition to the opposition. Like, that's what we have the media for. They're there to oppose the opposition. So no, I mean, yeah, Bernier, like, buddy, take a public speaking class. Also, maybe don't block Wyatt and I on Twitter, and we'll be nicer to you.
I don't think I'm blocked anymore. I think they realized that was a bad look. So yeah, for a little bit there, I couldn't see it. Then it came back. But okay, now moving on to Aaron O'Toole. What would Aaron O'Toole need to do to have won in 21, other than not betray his base? Like, how should he have run? Because even if he didn't betray people, I'm almost certain he lost.
Yeah, he should have never run and also never been born. Should have no. Like, there's nothing could have done. Aaron O'Toole was just not be Aaron O'Toole, or admit he was Peter MacKay. Like, if Aaron O'Toole wanted a better thing, he should have said, like, no, I'm Aaron, I'm Peter MacKay. Okay, I'm still blocking Max and Bernier. No, he should
I actually can't think of any way.
His whole, like, true blue conservative, but being a red Tory, should have been like, I'm a red Tory. I am a red Tory. And, you know, this is a compromise campaign. And at least that might have worked for Canadians. Like, if he was just honest, been like, no, this is a compromise campaign. I'm a red Tory. This is about political compromise, and I'm running on. I'm running as a compromise candidate.
Here's the thing that also hurt him too, is that he didn't run. If he ran on a promise to open up Canada faster, get everything opened faster, he would have done better. But he was like actively running on, like, I agree with the government's approach to COVID lockdowns, but I would do it better. And it was just like, I will do the lockdown policy better. It's like, okay,
I would have locked you down harder and gotten rid of the virus. And, you know, maybe
hit the war footing. Chinese. That was the dumbest thing he ever said, was the war footing stance. Like, he was gonna, like, well, I need to put Canada on a war footing for COVID. That's like crazy authoritarian language. So that's where he literally managed to satisfy literally no base by the time election day swung by, and he still somehow lost to Trudeau, who I've noted in other videos, between 15, 19, and 21, between all those elections, he literally lost votes between all of them. He lost 900,000 votes between 15-19, and then he lost a further 500,000 votes between 19-21. That's crazy that Trudeau can be consistently losing votes, and it's basically like Mitt Romney in 2012 versus Obama. Obama's losing voters, and Mitt Romney somehow underperforms even what John McCain did in 2008.
Yeah, it's a race to the bottom. That's Canadian politics, is a race to the bottom. Like, that's what is. No one's good at it. All the parties suck. And what I've liked about Pierre and seeing something is you never know he's leader, but there seems to be some sort of spark of political savvy here, where there's some sort of high level understanding of what data is good and bad, and like what the world actually is, and how to connect with people, at least superficially connect with people through social media. So,
well, here's a good anecdote for why generally I think he's been doing better. I know people that Polyev knows behind the scenes, and those people, there's a lot of people who you're like not supposed to talk to. Oh, that person's an awful person or whatever. And when I say awful, I just mean they're actually conservative and they've been smeared in the past, and all conservative leaders would like not speak to them. And I know he'll actually talk to them, so he's not like a complete elitist about, you know, which political organizers he'll actually speak to, which, you know, individual local constituents he'll like say hi to. That's where I think that one of his best policies in terms of campaigning so far, not like government policies, but philosophies to campaigning, is take a photo with every single person who comes to one of your events. Guess what? Nobody can attack you for who you take photos with unless they have an obvious like swastika on their like face. But nobody can attack you because you're just saying, I'll take a photo with anyone. I'm not going to be
exclusive. O'Toole shouldn't have sacrificed his base to appease the Liberal base.
Yeah.
Like that was bad politics. To start a war with your base to appease the base of the Liberal Party, like, you gained 0 voters and you only lost support. Like, do you remember how bad that Conservative Party convention was? It was all online.
Yeah, and you weren't allowed to say your name?
Yeah, you literally couldn't say my name. My name was one of the band names. Jim Kalaharos was banned. I think
like Derek Sloan was banned.
Band name. Yeah, but yeah, what if you type my name in the chat, that comment got auto-deleted.
Oh yeah, no, it was like literally stars, like someone had like said a 4-letter word.
Yeah, it was just like the N-word.
Yeah.
only scarier. The only thing scarier than the N-word is Daniel Bordman's name.
Wait. Oh, hey, but this reminds me because it has something to do with anti-Semitism. Which any criticism of Daniel Bordman
I think we know where we're going. Yeah, winding up here. Dale?
Dale Smith
Dale
from
Smith.
I forget who I think it's like the Canadian Press. He's just freelance. And this, so Leanna Rude, I talked about this on one of the episodes of like my show I uploaded recently, and she said the NDP liberals are all about banning plastics, firearms, cars, roads, you name it. If they you want to ban it, you know what conservatives will ban when the form government. We will ban anyone from who has anything to do with the WF globalists from having any role in our government. Canada will be the freest country on earth. And Dale Smith, the hamster running really fast on the wheel in his brain, says, once again, the WF globalist is an anti-Semitic dog whistle, and the conservatives keep using it and acting surprised at the rise of anti-Semitism. That's what all the pro-Hamas people are going around and shouting. End the WEF globalists. End the people who actually softly endorse our actions.
Listen, one, there is nothing more globalist in the entire planet than the concept of Palestine. Palestine is globalist. Okay, so this and that. Two, Dale Smith and his friends anyone who does this thing where they pretend to carry out anti-Semitism when people criticize the globalists, F off. All these people support the Hamas raping and killing Jews, right? They're all fine with actual anti-Semites running around the city, firebombing and shooting synagogues and Jewish daycares and schools. Like, none of them said anything when Jews are physically attacked. It's when someone says, "Oh, when they're thing this is Bernie Farber fighting anti-Semitism, the Anti-Hate Network." It's like,
I can bring up that thing about. I'll bring up that thing about Bernie Farber later.
Dude, I bring this up. The good point by Dave Edwards, having a carbon tax also undermine O'Toole. Yeah, this is a word in space, but I hate these people so much. Like, the globalists fund so many anti-Israel stuff. Like,
George Soros is openly anti-Israel.
George Soros is anti-Israel. He's funding these fake Jewish groups that are anti-Israel. Like, George
here's
Soros.
The thing too. Do you associate the WEF with any Jewish person in particular? Like, I don't. No. I associate it with Germany and Switzerland because it takes place in Switzerland, and the guy who leads it is German.
Yeah, and the number 2 guy, Yuval Harari, is an Israeli guy, but he's hated in Israel. They think he's a ding dong.
Well, there's nothing about it. And if anything, it was Dale Smith being anti-Semitic to basically consider. I feel like it's pretty bigoted to try and associate in people's mind Jewish people with the WF, which is he's the only one doing that.
He's the only one doing that. He's putting it on us. And it's nefarious on his part because he's now he's using Jews, which he doesn't care about. He clearly has no special love for the Jewish community, but now he's using Jews who are experiencing actual problems these days and using them as a hammer in his own little political games. Now he's using weaponized anti-Semitism and bringing this onto Jews, this whole WEF thing, which the conservative lady didn't do. It's him that's bringing this all into focus.
And the actual ideology of the WEF is trade unionism, basically internationalized trade unionism. That is what it is. That is what stakeholder capitalism is. It is trade unionism. Government and trade union stakeholder organizations. Basically, you're just replacing trade unions with stakeholders, which is going to include a lot of trade unions likely. Basically negotiating against private business, because that is the right thing to do. Because rather than serving shareholders, you have to cater to the greater community, your employees, the places that your businesses are set up, and all that stuff, which is effectively government and different non-government organizations holding your company hostage by basically sitting on a committee where it's 2 votes against your private business's 1 vote. That is what trade unionism is. It's to the end of they think they're going to do good things by doing that. But, jokes on them. Trade unionism has been tried in several countries, and it has gotten to the worst. It's gotten to mediocre results at best.
Yeah, it's bad news. Are we any more topics, or did we hit an hour and we're?
Yeah, maybe. Is there anything else we need to bring up? Did I have something else on stream I wanted to talk about? Oh, yeah. Let's just go over Bernie Farber just to kind of wrap it up by Bernie Farber admitting that he is an awful person and his organization he doesn't specifically say.
Yeah, you find it. I'll give the background. So Bernie Farber is the head of the Anti-Hate Network. This is the Canadian SPLC. It's a fund It's an organization that works for the Liberal Party to find hate speech and hateful people on the right. And Bernie Farber used to be like the head of the Canadian Jewish Congress or whatever when that was still a thing. So he plays this whole like, oh, I'm an expert in anti-Semitism. But a lot of the groups that the Anti-Hate Network funds are like literal far-left Antifa people. And a lot of the people on the streets right now harassing Jews, with their fancy signs, the sort of socialist pamphlets on why we need to destroy Israel, a lot of that's funded by Bernie Farber and the Anti-Hate Network.
And a lot of this hate is being generated by these people because when you look at organizations like independent media organizations like Canada Land, when Jesse Brown started speaking out against anti-Semitism, it was his own writers union. So never let your writers unionize. If they suck at their jobs, do not keep employing them. But there's a writers union, and his own writers union started attacking him for calling out anti-Semitism, basically saying that he was attacking Palestine for making any deal out of actual anti-Semitism going on. And this is why Press Progress and Anti-Hate and all these organizations said nothing about anti-Semitism for basically months, and then they maybe kind of leaked out one article, but they always had to tie it back to some parental rights person who was a Muslim who said something that was anti-Semitic. So they couldn't even go fully into just calling out the actual main bad actors. They had to find some fringe person who kind of had an association with a more conservative movement in order to actually have a problem with it. But I'll bring it up on screen now. So here's Bernie Farber's thread.
I've always believed in the two-state solution. Stupid. I still do, because you're dumb. I have written and spoken publicly about this. Yes, he has. Watching Palestinians and others I know jumping on the Hamas bandwagon literally makes me ill. I don't know why you're surprised, but fair enough. We should all demand an immediate unconditional surrender of Hamas, an unconditional return of our stolen babies and other innocents, leading international oversight towards the development of a two-state solution. Well, that's stupid because we should demand the unconditional surrender of Hamas and the unconditional return of stolen babies. Okay. Oh, the return of the hostages. Unconditional. Okay, yes. And then that's actually right. Leading to an international oversight towards development of a two-state solution. Stupid. That would just lead to UNRWA and Hamas again. In the end, walking with Hamas is akin to walking with Nazis. Yes.
The funny thing is, I will give him credit. That is a good statement by Bernie Farber overall, outside of the wishful thinking. But the thing is, you can even tell he's been stewing on this for basically months now. And that's why he probably said something stronger than he would have if he was just soft pedaling the issues the entire time. And I guarantee you now he is going to get undermined by his own base of supporters because they were basically saying it was part of the deal that your progressive base was allowed to hate Jewish people, including yourself, because, that's it's a higher up minority in the progressive coalition.
Yeah, I mean, the Islamophobia lady, Amira Al-Ghabra, was one of the founders of the Anti-Hate Network with him. She was one of the big-time people in there, and she came from the NCCM, which is formerly known as CARE Canada. And CARE Canada came from, let's say those ones.
For a transition, David Edward pointed this out, so I want to go back to it. He's referring to Aaron O'Toole, and he said having a carbon tax plan in his platform was terrible. And I absolutely agree. The thing with that, too, I was on, and this is a local issue now, because I'm running for the Calgary Signal Hill Conservative nomination. I used to be on the Calgary Signal Hill board back when one of my other competitors was the president of the board. And, of course, he did nothing during all of this. But literally, Liepert, the current MP, Ron Liepert, mocked me for not liking Aaron O'Toole's carbon tax plan because he said that basically it's wonkish, it's great, the media's going to eat it up, and you thinking that this is going to hurt us is foolish. You don't understand anything about politics and the media. Legitimately, I, as the guy in that room who advises politicians on the side and runs a media company, didn't know anything about politics and the media. And Ron Liepert was so right that he somehow, Aaron O'Toole underperformed Andrew Scheer. I don't understand how anyone looks back at the Aaron O'Toole era. I still see people saying that actually the Conservatives would do better if we still had Aaron O'Toole around. People don't like voting for bland, politicians who aren't passionate about anything. There's a reason why Andrew Scheer didn't win in 2019 and Aaron O'Toole didn't win in 2021. Because if anything, you could say Scheer had the socially conservative background, Aaron O'Toole had the progressive red Tory liberal background, very different candidates. And then they ran on the same kind of red Tory playbook of just kind of reduce the talk of controversial issues, stick to bread and butter, tax things. And even then, they didn't even say anything radical on taxes. They were like, we'll give you tax credits. We will I think
the
slightly
super
reduce.
chat Dave said thought we missed was, I think, this one, the joke about me. Daniel would have been on time if Freeland was driving. We did address this one. I then went on a whole joke of myself about how I spent a night with Krista Freeland and we are in love. I love the fact that she hates Canada, and we play this game in the bedroom called Freeze My Bank Account, Baby, and it gets wild.
Here's something I'll disagree with Aaron Taylor on. He said, Aaron O'Toole, good man, bad politician. I thank him for his service. He can sit down now. Well, good thing he has left his seat now. It's going to be replaced by an actual conservative in Jamil Giovanni. Thankfully, not Robert Rock, the guy that ran in the nomination.
It's going to be Patricia Conklin. How about
of course, it's going to be Patricia. But no, but the thing, I don't consider Aaron O'Toole a good man. I think I've ranted about this in a different stream where I was just on it. I hate the ideology of good guyism, and I'm not thinking that Aaron's pushing that.
But Peterson said of weak men, it's not good to be weak and pathetic.
And it's not because, and again, I'm not disagreeing with Aaron Taylor. Aaron O'Toole probably on a 1-to-1 level, good guy. But I think being a good man is often almost completely irrelevant in politics. You should be a good person in general. At the same time, there's so many good guys who run in nominations or run for leadership races or run just for different parties who are good guys, but they also steal away your representation and don't represent the things that they're supposed to. If anything, Aaron O'Toole is actually a thief because he stole all of the conservative donors' money and then just burned it, trying to fulfill absolutely nothing. Even if he won, he would have fulfilled nothing, and he would have stolen millions of dollars from conservative donors, putting him into office to get rid of the gun ban, rid of the carbon tax, cut taxes in general, and a bunch of other stuff. He effectively is a thief, and so many of these kind of red Tory type people who run in conservative ridings are thieves. They are stealing your representation, and they're going to stand for nothing in office when you pay them, not only in donations, but through their salary, money every year to represent you, and they don't do it.
So do you think McKay would have won?
I actually do think he would.
Maybe he had a much better chance than O'Toole. O'Toole was the worst piece. The good thing about Peter MacKay is Peter MacKay and claims to be Peter MacKay. The problem is Aaron O'Toole is Peter MacKay and claimed to be Pierre Poilievre, which he's not.
Here, MacKay had more charisma. MacKay
actually has some conservative opinions. Unlike O'Toole, who claims to be Cuba conservative and has only red Tory opinions, MacKay actually has some conservative opinions. Like he's tough on crime, and some other things. Like he actually has some blue Tory opinions.
Yeah, you and I during 2020, our stance was that if Peter MacKay says he's not going to fully get rid of the gun ban, he's telling the truth. If he says he'll get rid of the carbon tax, he's telling the truth. If he says that, he doesn't like social conservatives, he's telling the truth. So pretty much Peter MacKay was telling his real positions on the issues, but that was just the problem that ended up happening was that because Aaron O'Toole ran as the true blue conservative, people in their minds kind of ranked the levels of conservatism as Sloan, Lewis, Aaron O'Toole, MacKay, and then a lot of people end up picking O'Toole thinking that he had the better chance of winning of the three more conservative people, and that's what ended up happening. It was incredibly silly, but and in the case of MacKay, I think the reason why he would have won is that he has charisma. Peter MacKay actually has a somewhat likable personality, not in a somewhat in sense half bad, half good. I just mean he's not exactly like a freewheeling Poilievre character, but he projects personality when he's in a leadership role. And he would have never done cringy stuff like that weird magazine cover conservative platform wearing like a skin tight black t-shirt. And
you know what? I give it to Aaron O'Toole. That was his best thing. He got in shape. He ran around. He worked out.
He's better shape than I am.
And, he wanted to show everyone that he'd been losing weight, running around pumping iron, and wanted to be prime minister. So he did the magazine cover. Yeah, MacKay wouldn't do that because he didn't look like a stubby fat guy beforehand.
But Peter MacKay, here's actually the thing with Peter MacKay. Peter MacKay, there's not that many people who
maybe
look
O'Toole
like
was just on a Ozempic, so maybe not.
Yeah, Peter MacKay has a very distinct look too. So when you know his name and you see his face, you don't forget it. I guarantee more than 50% of people who voted in 21 didn't know who Aaron O'Toole was. I bet a lot of people still thought Andrew Scheer was the leader. His name recognition sucked. And the thing is, I think that he actually would have done a good job. MacKay would have in a debate. And I think that because he was running on the idea that some people are going to have to compromise in order to stay with the Conservative Party, people like me who didn't like his positions on a lot of social issues would have been said, okay, not great, but at least we can fight over these issues openly and honestly later. So that would have been fine. I would have been on board. I think that O'Toole lost more people by pretending he was your ideal candidate than betraying you later. Whereas Peter MacKay saying, I'm not going to serve you on that issue in the first place, would have had a lot of us do the calculus and say, okay, fair enough, I'll do it. But with O'Toole, once he started betraying you on significant policy measures, you assume that he's going to do that on everything else, so it's not worth voting for him.
Yeah, I agree. So that's our breakdown of an election, conservative electoral race that happened years ago. That's the cutting edge stuff you come to the TNT Live for.
Yeah, only fresh content.
Analysis of something 2 years ago.
Anyways, well, that should be it for today. We'll probably come back, tomorrow with more, or not tomorrow. More videos tomorrow, but we'll probably do another stream next week or whatever, same time, same bat time, whatever Daniel usually says. But we'll try and focus on. I'll try and grab some more topics that we haven't covered previously, and try and do stuff that I haven't made videos of.
I think at the end. Thanks for the show. Thanks. Happy Family Day.
Yeah. Thank you, Donna. You'll basically show up for all the events. Anyways, but if anyone wants to support TNT because of our removal from Facebook and a lot of other places, I do have the Give, Send, Go link to the general support one down in the comments below. We'll be here again next week. Send any when the live stream ends on YouTube on the TNT channel, you guys could comment below on any topics you guys want us to cover, either in videos or another live stream, and we'll try and fit it in if we can. Thank you for the $5 super chat, David Edwards. I'm not sure if you meant to throw something in there or that was just a general $5. Regardless, we thank you for that. So yeah, we'll probably come back with maybe we'll do a breakdown of ArriveCAN scandal next time, and maybe sort of do a little bit of a commentary on whether we think any of this can sink Justin Trudeau. I'm actually pretty hawkish on the idea that if we just, if that this scandal could actually sink Trudeau, just because there's a little, it's like the sponsorship scandal. There's potentially money laundering implications into the Liberal Party.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this. I think we'd have a discussion here because I have some views too.
Okay. Well, anyways, that will be saved for next week or the next time we have an availability for a stream. We'll at least try and give people a 2-hour heads up whenever we do one, just so we don't, catch you blind. But at the same time, I actually think that streams get more views when they're out of nowhere because I think YouTube suppresses ones that are scheduled. I don't know, but we'll figure it out for next week. See you guys later.